In war, death is everywhere, but life is only in the hands of those who race against time. Medevac pilots fly unarmed helicopters into enemy fire, risking everything to save wounded soldiers. Major Patrick Brady and his crew will enter enemy fire 4 times on one of Vietnam's bloodiest days to rescue 51 wounded soldiers. The enemy fires from all directions. Time is running out. The wounded are dying. Call sign Dustoff 71, the helicopter that dances with death itself. You will decide what to believe among the spinning rotors of the Red Cross-marked helicopter. Major Patrick Brady was landing his helicopter into the middle of enemy fire, rotor blades hitting tree branches. There were 200 Viet Cong soldiers around, and all of them were firing at the helicopter. But Brady didn't give up landing. 6 critically wounded soldiers were dying on the ground. He shouted over the radio, "Dustoff 71 landing, prepare the wounded." The helicopter shook, bullets embedding into the metal fuselage. Co-pilot Dan shouted, "Patrick, we're taking heavy fire. We need to pull out." Brady responded, "After the wounded are on board." Within 30 seconds, 6 wounded were thrown onto the helicopter. Brady pushed the throttle all the way. The helicopter rose vertically. One rotor blade broke, but it was still flying. Brady smiled and said, "Dustoff never leaves anyone behind, but 45 more wounded are waiting today." Chu Lai Base, Vietnam, January 6, 1968. Major Patrick Brady woke up at 05:30. Outside, monsoon rain was drizzling. Bad weather for flying. Brady, 32 years old, was a Bell UH-1H Huey Medevac pilot. Call sign Dustoff 71, the most famous Medevac helicopter. 14 months in Vietnam, over 2,000 flight hours, more than 500 wounded evacuations. Medevac, medical evacuation. In the Vietnam War, this word meant a second chance. A wounded soldier makes a Medevac call. The helicopter comes, takes them to the hospital. Average time 15 minutes. In World War II, this took 12 hours. Brady's crew was 4 people. Co-pilot Captain Dan Miller, Crew Chief Sergeant Tom Harrison, nicknamed Doc. He had medical training, door gunner Corporal Mike Rodriguez, but weapons were prohibited on Medevac helicopters, according to Geneva Convention rules. The helicopter, Bell UH-1H Huey, white fuselage, large Red Cross marking, unarmed. According to international law, medical vehicles cannot be armed. But this didn't mean the enemy wouldn't fire. In reality, the enemy saw Medevac helicopters as priority targets. Brady received his mission order at the morning briefing. The commander explained, "A major battle is expected in Ashao Valley today. On standby alert, you'll take off immediately when the call comes." Miller was worried. He said, "Ashao is a fire hell. Landing there is suicide." Brady calmly responded, "The wounded are waiting. We're going in." Harrison checked the equipment. Stretchers, medical kit, IV sets, tourniquets, morphine ampules. Everything was ready. Rodriguez tested the helicopter. Engine, rotor blades, fuel, hydraulic system. He reported, "Dustoff 71 ready, Major." At 06, the first call came. The radio crackled and a loud call echoed. "Dustoff, Dustoff. This is Hawk 6. We have 6 urgent surgical heavy contact. LZ is hot." Brady immediately responded, "Hawk 6, this is Dustoff 71. Copy 6 urgent surgical. Grid coordinates?" The radio answered, "Grid Alpha Tango 937442. LZ 50 meters diameter, surrounded by enemy. We're pinned down." Brady started the helicopter. Rotors accelerated. They were airborne within 30 seconds. Distance 40 kilometers. Flight time 15 minutes. Miller checked the map and explained, "Ashao Valley, valley floor. Enemy everywhere." Brady was flying at low altitude, TALAD, to stay under radar, hovering 50 meters above the trees. At 0610, they approached the landing zone. Heavy fighting below, M16 rifle sounds, AK-47 responses, mortar explosions. Harrison prepared and reported, "Stretchers ready, room for 6 wounded." Rodriguez coordinated over the radio, "Hawk 6, Dustoff inbound. Pop smoke, purple smoke rose, landing point marker." At 06:15, Brady started lowering the helicopter. Enemy fire began immediately. Tack, 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 tack. Bullets were hitting the helicopter fuselage. Metal piercing sounds coming. Miller warned, "Heavy fire, 3 o'clock. Very intense." Brady was determined and ordered, "We're going in." The helicopter touched ground. 6 wounded soldiers around, on stretchers, lying in blood. Harrison and Rodriguez jumped, loaded the stretchers onto the helicopter. 6 wounded, some unconscious, some screaming in pain. It took 20 seconds, the longest 20 seconds. Brady hit the throttle. The helicopter rose vertically. A bullet hit one rotor blade. Vibration started. Miller checked and reported, rotor damaged but flyable. Brady relaxed after rising 100 meters and said, 6 wounded safe, returning to Chu Lai. At 07 they returned to base. 6 wounded taken to emergency surgery. All would survive. Brady checked the helicopter damage. 14 bullet holes, 1 rotor blade damaged. The technician examined and said, 1 hour repair time. Brady insisted, make it ready in 30 minutes. More calls coming. At 08, the second call came. The radio screamed, dust off. This is Bravo 2-1. We have 8 urgent, ambushed, LZ very hot. Brady jumped to the helicopter. The rotor wasn't fully repaired yet but was flyable. Miller warned, rotor not fully fixed, risky. Brady was determined. 8 wounded waiting, we're going. Grid coordinates, 25 kilometers southwest. Flight time, 12 minutes. This time the landing zone was narrower, 30-meter diameter clearing, surrounded by dense forest. Ambush zone. At 08:15 they approached. A chaotic scene below. 8 wounded, 40 soldiers in defensive positions. Enemy 100 meters away. Harrison observed and reported, 8 wounded, 4 critical, we must go now. Brady landed, but the helicopter hit tree branches. Rotors cut branches, screech, screech. Miller panicked and shouted, branches catching the rotor. Brady stayed calm and instructed, a bit lower, landing in the clearing. The helicopter swayed. Vibration increased minus but touched ground. Harrison and Rodriguez quickly loaded the wounded. 8 wounded, some with amputated limbs, some chest wounds. Enemy fire intensified. Ray-ta-ta-tat. AK-47 automatic fire. Rodriguez was hit. Bullet struck his shoulder. But he continued, loaded the last wounded. Brady took off, but rotor damage was serious. The helicopter was shaking. Miller alarmed. Rotor critically damaged. Vibration off the charts. Brady asked, can we make Chu Lai? Miller calculated and answered, 25 kilometers maybe, but rotors could break any moment. Brady took the risk and ordered, we're going. Throughout the flight, the helicopter vibrated violently. Harrison tried to stabilize the wounded, but the helicopter's shaking made it difficult. Rodriguez made himself a tourniquet on the shoulder wound and said, I'm fine, focus on the wounded. At 09 they approached base, but the rotor sound was abnormal. The control tower warned, dust off 71, your rotor is smoking, emergency landing. Brady landed the helicopter with last strength. The moment it touched ground, the rotor blade broke off. Crack, Miller explained in shock. Incredible, we landed just in time. 8 wounded immediately taken to emergency. Rodriguez also sent to treatment. The technician looked at the helicopter and assessed, this helicopter is dead, can't fly anymore. Brady asked, any other helicopter available? The commander intervened, Brady, enough, 2 missions, 14 wounded saved, rest. Brady insisted, more wounded out there, give me another helicopter. The commander hesitated, then approved, okay, but change co-pilot, Miller is tired. Brady refused, no, Miller stays with me. Miller smiled and said, I'll fly with you until death, Patrick. At 09:30, new helicopter, dust off slightly older model but working. At 10:30, the third call came. The radio crackled in panic. Dust off, this is Delta 1-3. We have 12 urgent, took airstrike, heavy casualties. Brady and Miller boarded the new helicopter. New crew instead of Harrison and Rodriguez. Sergeant Linda Chen, medically trained nurse. Corporal James Carter, experienced crew member. Chen introduced herself and said respectfully, Major Brady, I've heard of your reputation. It's an honor to serve. Brady replied, welcome. This won't be easy. Grid coordinates 35 kilometers north. Airstrike area minus. Bomb craters and heavy smoke. Flight time 14 minutes. At 10:45 they approached. Hell below. Bomb craters. Burning tanks. Wounded everywhere. Chen was shocked and whispered, my God, how many are there? The commander shouted over radio, dust off. I reported 12 wounded, but the count rose to 20, all critical. Brady calculated and explained, helicopter holds 8 wounded, need 3 trips. Miller objected, 3 trips? We'll go under fire each time. Brady replied, no other choice. First landing, Enemy fire was light because the airstrike had scattered them. Chen and Carter loaded 8 wounded, worked fast and efficiently. Brady took off, first 8 wounded taken to base. At 11:15, second landing. This time the enemy had regrouped. Fire was heavy. TKK. Chen was hit. Bullet in the leg. But she didn't stop. Loaded 6 more wounded. Carter shouted. Chen is hit, Brady ordered. Taking off. Second trip. 6 more wounded saved. Chen sent to treatment. At 11:45, third landing. Last 6 wounded remained. But the enemy had learned the helicopter's route. They set up a perfect ambush. When Brady approached, enemy fired from all directions. Rat-tit-tit-tit-tit. Tack. The helicopter was caught in a hail of bullets. Windscreen cracked. Engine smoking. Miller alarmed. Engine hit. Losing power. Brady was determined. Not abandoning the target. Going in. The helicopter landed swaying. Carter jumped out, but was immediately hit. Dead. Brady went into shock and shouted, "Carter down!" Miller said, "I'm going out." Miller jumped from the helicopter, tried to load the last 6 wounded alone, but they were too heavy. A soldier from the ground helped. Together they loaded the 6 wounded. Brady took off. Engine was running shakily, but still flying. At 12, when they returned to base, the engine completely stopped. The helicopter crashed onto the runway, but the wounded were safe. Miller was crying and yelled, "We lost Carter." Brady consoled, "But 20 wounded are alive. Carter died heroically." At 14, Brady was sitting in the restroom. He had saved 20 wounded but lost Carter. He was exhausted, worn out. The commander came and ordered, "Brady, enough for today, go home." Brady asked, "How many more wounded?" The commander explained, 15, but I sent other pilots." At that moment the radio crackled and a panicked voice was heard. "Mayday! Mayday! Dust-off 42 is down. Pilot and crew wounded." Brady jumped up and asked, "Where?" The commander blocked. "No, Brady, you're not going." Brady insisted, "My dust-off brothers are down. I'm going." Miller also came over and added, "I'm coming too." New crew, Sergeant Marcus Wright, 10 years Medevac experience. Corporal Sarah Kim, young but talented. Helicopter, dust-off 15, last remaining Medevac helicopter. Grid coordinates 50 kilometers south. Downed helicopter area, minus enemy probably surrounded it. At 14:30 they took off. This would be the most dangerous mission of the day. Miller warned, "Patrick, going to a downed helicopter. Enemy has set a trap." Brady acknowledged, "I know, but dust-off never abandons its brothers." Silence throughout the flight. Everyone was tense. At 1500 they approached the downed helicopter area. Helicopter and wreckage. Heavy enemy activity around. Wright scanned with thermal camera and reported, 50 enemy soldiers around the wreckage. Kim whispered in fear, "Landing there is suicide." Brady explained the plan. "Landing plan, fast dive, get the wounded, out. 30 seconds. Miller objected. 30 seconds. Impossible. Brady insisted. "We'll make it possible." At 15:15, Brady made a sudden dive. Enemy was surprised. They saw 3 wounded before the helicopter reached ground level. But 2 more people were in the wreckage. They were trapped. Wright and Kim jumped, tried to lift the wreckage. Enemy opened fire. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Brady was keeping the helicopter at ground level. A very difficult maneuver. Miller grabbed a weapon and shouted, "Fuck the Geneva Convention." Fired at the enemy. 30 seconds passed. 40 seconds. 50 seconds. Wright yelled, "Last wounded is stuck. Can't cut him out." Brady ordered, "Stop the rotor. We're going down to help." Miller was shocked and objected, "If the rotor stops, enemy will kill us." Brady was determined. "We must." The rotor was stopped. Brady left the pilot's seat. For the first time in Vietnam, he abandoned piloting to save wounded. Brady, Miller, and Wright lifted the wreckage together. Last wounded was freed, but the enemy came within 20 meters. Kim screamed, "They're too close." 5 wounded loaded onto the helicopter. Brady returned to pilot's seat. Rotor started. The helicopter took off, but the enemy fired RPG rocket launcher. The rocket passed by the helicopter, missed by 2 meters. Miller yelled, "Damn, we almost got hit." Brady pushed the throttle all the way. The helicopter rose rapidly. At 16 they were at safe distance. 5 wounded. The downed dust-off crew were safe. Wright relaxed and confessed, "I thought we couldn't do it." Brady smiled and said, "Dust-off always does." At 16:30 they returned to base. Total of 51 wounded saved throughout the day. Major Patrick Brady saved 51 wounded on January 6, 1968. 4 dangerous missions, 3 helicopter losses, 1 crew member killed, 2 wounded. This performance became legend in military history. Brady later wrote in his memoirs, "Medevac piloting is more about responsibility than courage. Wounded soldiers trust you, you can never abandon them." Miller became a Medevac instructor after retirement, trained hundreds of pilots. Harrison Dock became a trauma surgeon after returning from Vietnam, applied what he learned in war at the hospital. Rodriguez recovered from his shoulder wound and served 2 more years in Vietnam. Chen recovered despite her leg wound and continued serving as a Medevac nurse. Carter, the fallen crew member, his family was given a hero medal. His gravestone reads, "Died while saving others." Patrick Brady was promoted to colonel after Vietnam, saved a total of 2,000 wounded. In 1969, Brady was awarded the Medal of Honor, America's highest military medal. In his medal ceremony speech, he said, "This medal is not mine. It belongs to all dust-off pilots. We just did our duty, never abandon the wounded." The Bell UH-1H Huey helicopter became the symbol of the Vietnam War. A total of 7,000 Hueys served in Vietnam. The Medevac concept became standard in modern military doctrines. Today, every army has Medevac units. In Vietnam, thanks to Medevac, the wounded survival rate rose to 98%, the highest rate in history. Brady's words are still taught in Medevac schools today. Weather conditions are not an excuse. Enemy fire is not an excuse. If a wounded soldier is waiting for you, you will go. January 6, 1968, is commemorated as Medevac Day in the military calendar. Dust-Off 71, Brady's helicopter, is displayed at the U.S. Army Museum today. 14 bullet holes still in the fuselage. When you see a helicopter in the sky, maybe it's a dust-off angels flying to save lives. Brady taught us, courage is risking death for someone else.